Hello everyone and welcome back to the Quiz Talks Football Podcast. This is episode number 16 here today for the 16th match day of the Premier League. We'll also have a look at the big footballing stories concerning managers this weekend. We'll also have a look at what happened in the EFL because of course the Championship Leagues 1 and 2 returned after the FA Cup second round last weekend. So we'll have a look at that of course. So we'll have a look as well at the Premier League and all those games as well. The Champions League is on right now, currently as we speak. We'll get the updates from them. So hopefully we are in for a bumper of an episode. So then, an eventful weekend in the Premier League. And probably one of the shock results of the season. Managerless Everton, who sacked, obviously, Marco Silva a couple of days ago. They managed to get the shock result by beating Chelsea by 3-1, and Everton really needed that. Obviously, former striker Duncan Ferguson was put in charge of the Toffees for their first home game since Marco Silva was sacked in midweek. And it was a really deserved win for Everton. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring 2 goals as well. He's pretty much asserted himself as an icon for Darren Ferguson. But good win for Everton and exactly what they needed, because they obviously came under a lot of pressure after that Derby Day defeat to Liverpool, and it was the perfect response. Chelsea now, I believe, only have 1 win in their last 5 games in all competitions. Obviously, we will get the preview to the Champions League match against Lille and all the other Champions League fixtures, but I think that really it's a good win for Everton, because Duncan Ferguson, of course, if any of you saw his reaction at full time, it's like it really meant a lot to him, and it means a lot to the squad. I mean, the squad are in now psychologically a good place. They're 14th with 17 points, so they've got 1 more point than the amount of games that they've played this season in the Premier League. But they're obviously still looking for contenders. But Vitor Pereira, who I found out is managing a Chinese club, he is now out of the running to be Everton manager. And who will it be? Obviously, there's the rumours that David Moyes obviously might return to Everton, but for me, I said that I think that I don't think it will be, a match made in heaven really, that Everton are back with David Moyes. I don't think he'll do it. But of course, there's obviously new people that have sprung up, the likes of Niko Kovac, the Bayern Munich manager, who was sacked this season after a humiliating defeat to Frankfurt 5-1, and he's now as a surprise contender for the jobs. So we will obviously see how that works out. But obviously Duncan Ferguson himself is obviously now linked with the job, but obviously we will find out who will be the next manager. But obviously Vitor Pereira, who looked to be the main contender really. I mean, we didn't really see a lot of advances in terms of David Moyes or Sam Allardyce, but there is still time. Of course, Duncan Ferguson, now that he's beaten Chelsea, he said, I'm not really in the running for the job, but he must surely at least be thinking about the job just a little bit, because I think if he can get results like that against Chelsea, results will come thick and fast if he keeps performing. Marcelo Gallardo as well, I've never heard of this guy. He's in the running for the Everton job, as is Marcelinho, who was sacked as Valencia coach earlier this season. So a couple of real contenders in there. Who do I think will be the next manager? It does look like Duncan Ferguson could be the man to take them, but I think a couple of seasons ago they stuck with David Unsworth and then they sacked him. But I don't know. Let me know, guys. Who do you think will be the next Everton manager? But for Chelsea, I mean, they were one of the form teams in the division coming to November, the mid-November period. But now they've sort of slid off. Only 1 win in their past 5 games in all competitions. Of course, they're playing in a really big match against Lille in the Champions League, which they have to win. We will have to preview that. But Chelsea, we haven't really seen Tammy Abraham get into the goals, really. I mean, obviously, he did, I believe, score in that Everton game, but he had, I think it was his first goal in 4 games, I think it was. I'm not really too sure. So they need Abraham back in scoring. They also need the midfield to be put in strings. Kovacic and Jorginho. I mean, ever since Jorginho made that wonder pass of an assist to Abraham, he hasn't really been into it. Of course, he didn't really do well against Manchester City, and of course, he was one of the weak links in the defeat to West Ham a couple of weeks ago. So, of course, he needs to improve. But I think Lampard will get the squad reassured. But they are coming under a little bit of pressure because Manchester United are 5 points behind. Manchester United beat Manchester City in the first Manchester derby this season. It was pretty late because normally we see Manchester derbies, the first of the two, are happening in around about October. Obviously, this one happened in the start of December, which wasn't very good. But obviously, with Amazon now streaming the Premier League, of course, sales went through the rocket. But really good win for Manchester United. Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial finding the scoring touch. And I've got to say, Marcus Rashford is doing pretty well as really the lone striker. And I know people say, oh, but Martial can play striker as well. I think Rashford is more of a striker than Martial. And I think Martial is definitely more of a number 10. You could say maybe a number 11, but those two have done really well. I think they've really carried Manchester United this season. And of course, there were a lot of people that are saying Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, his job could be under threat. I think during the draw to Aston Villa a couple of days ago, I thought that there was a little bit of doubt for his job, but he's beaten 2 of the top 6, so that is incredible. He's beaten Spurs and Manchester City by the same scoreline. Really good stuff. Marcus Rashford has now, I believe, got 10 goals in his last 10 goals this season, I think. Not 10 goals in his last 10 games, but I think he's got 10 goals this season. He's one of the top scorers in the Premier League. Manchester City, though, I think they're out of the title race now. I think 14 points is too much of a gap. I think it's going to be such a difficult time. And I know Liverpool, obviously, they're leading against Red Bull Salzburg in the Champions League right now as we speak. But I think that if, obviously, this will be a testing time for Liverpool because, of course, of the Club World Cup and the Carabao Cup and, of course, the FA Cup, which they'll contest in January. It's going to be a busy festive period for them. If they can get through it, still unbeaten, I think that's it. I think Liverpool will win the league. I don't think it'll be like 2014 where they threw it away. But Manchester City, I think really what has happened to them? Of course, the draw at Newcastle, which wasn't really the greatest result. They obviously bounced back against Burnley, but now it's only 1 win in their past 3 games. And really, I think that win against Chelsea was the worst thing that could have happened to them because now they've started believing in their own hype a little bit now. They've started to get a little bit arrogant, saying, oh, we can win the league, we have the best manager in the league and whatnot. But they've been brought back down to earth. Money can't buy you everything. Obviously, Manchester City, of course, it took them how many years? 4, 5 years, I think, until they won the Premier League, even with the money. But this is sort of like those times. They've still, I don't think they're gonna win the league this season. They're 6 points behind Leicester City, for goodness sakes. But I think their title challenge is over. I think Guardiola, is he under a little bit of pressure? I'm not too sure. I mean, obviously he's the second best manager in world football right now. I think Jurgen Klopp is the greatest manager in world football. Then it goes probably Guardiola, Mourinho, Ernesto Valverde, who's the coach of Barcelona, and of course Zidane, who's coaching Real Madrid. But it's going to be quite interesting to see the developments at Manchester City. Of course, people have been talking about Jurgen Klopp and taking a sabbatical when his contract runs out, and also maybe the talk of Guardiola leaving Manchester City that's just emerged now. So who knows? These could be just rumours, but who knows what could happen to this title race. Of course, the Premier League, the best league in the world, more twists and more turns. But for Manchester United, they're slowly trying to climb up that top 4. If they can finish in the top 4, that would be a real achievement for Manchester United, I think. They spent 80 million on Harry Maguire, Wan-Bissaka as well, Daniel James. They've spent, 150 million pounds on new recruits. And, alright, they've done pretty well. I think Wan-Bissaka, out of the 3 new signings, has done the best job for them. But if Manchester United, where they are fifth was where I predicted them to finish. And if they can beat Chelsea, who for me are outperforming right now, I thought Chelsea would finish sixth. I think for United to get into the top four would be really, very good. But obviously there's more ways that they can qualify for the Champions League. Obviously, if they win the Europa League, then they get an automatic qualification to next year's Champions League. So I think Solskjaer will definitely focus on getting United back into the Champions League, definitely. But I think they're really going to have to sort of get through this January, February period without, not losing too much track, because of course United now could be looking at that target of reaching the Champions League. But for Manchester City, it is all over. They're only 3 points in front of Chelsea, so another defeat or another slip up means they could potentially slip, down to fourth place, and that really would be a surprise. I really thought with the additions of Rodrigo and Angelino, of course, at the back, that Manchester City would win the league again. I thought it would be as close as it was last time, but with the defensive problems they've had, I think John Stones has now gone off injured in that Manchester derby, so they need a defender, 100%. Obviously, they've been linked with the likes of Soyuncu from Leicester City, Ben Chilwell as well from Leicester. A lot of players that are either full-backs or centre-backs. But, City essentially need a centre-back, I think, to just, a little bit of reassurance, because Guardiola, I think, probably around about New Year, if they're still 14 points behind Liverpool, will think to himself, okay, we're out of it, but we still need to show that we're Man City. We can still push Liverpool all the way, and I think that's what they'll be probably doing in January, because I don't think they will win the Premier League. But speaking of Leicester City, they beat Aston Villa away from home by 4-1. They are record breakers. 8 consecutive Premier League wins now for Leicester. They've never managed that, even in their title-winning campaign 15-16. They've never managed that. And now are Leicester starting to become into the title conversations? We are almost halfway through the season, and Leicester are still in it. Jamie Vardy has, I think, 15 goals this season, which is absolutely mental. Brilliant stuff. And he's 33 and he shows no signs of declining. A lot of players have hit, obviously, ages like 33 and start to decline, most notably, of course, Wayne Rooney. I think he's 33 or 34, and he's going to be signing for a Championship club in January, whereas Jamie Vardy is one of the best Premier League strikers in the moment, one of the best forwards in the world, in my opinion. His accuracy and his goal-to-shot ratio is just insane. He's got a lot of precision and technicality in his shooting, and I think that's why Leicester is so high out. Johnny Evans scored. I think Johnny Evans, out of the two centre-backs, is quite the underrated one. Of course, West Brom, he wasn't really particularly playing well there because it wasn't really his level. Of course, Johnny Evans used to play for Manchester United over half a decade ago, so I think that's where his level is at, and he's done pretty well for himself at Leicester. But Leicester do go marching on. Of course, they've only lost 2 games this season and have the best defence in the league, the best goal difference in the league, the most potent attack with Vardy, Tielemans, and Didi's 22, which a lot of people don't recognise, that their midfield is still young. Maddison, Tielemans and Didi, Kelechi Iheanacho as well up front. He's been on fire recently. He played brilliantly against Everton. He did pretty well against Watford, and of course he, I think, set up one of the goals this weekend for Aston Villa. And, a lot of people did say, before these last couple of games, that Iheanacho is finished at his time as a footballer. But what you've got to remember, guys, is Iheanacho is, I think, 23 or 24 years old. He still has another decade in him. So I really rate Brendan Rodgers for keeping the faith in Kelechi Iheanacho, because he's a top player, as you saw at City in 16-17 and 15-16. He is a natural goal scorer, the Nigerian, and he will definitely probably be pushing Jose Perez. And I think now the likes of Jose Perez and also I think Harvey Barnes, their positions could be in danger because of Iheanacho's good recent form. But who knows? Can Leicester keep this up? Well, we don't know. I mean, they've still got a lot of time to do it in. They've got a lot of time to keep this pace up, but of course Leicester have got the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, so exactly like Liverpool. But can they keep this up? I potentially think they could. Obviously, I thought that they would finish in the top 6, outside the top 6 at the start of the season in my predictions. That's being put to waste. But yeah, Leicester, if we look at their current form, obviously 8 Premier League games in a row. They have Norwich at home this weekend. And of course, Norwich lost to Sheffield United. And we'll now start talking about Norwich. Norwich are now second from bottom of the Premier League. And of course, now the pressure is starting to mount on Daniel Farke, because of course that is now 2 defeats in a row by way of 2-1. But Sheffield United starting to climb back up the table. Of course, they had that draw, they had that defeat in Newcastle. They are now back in the top 10. They're in 8th place, but there are 4 teams that are on the same amount of points as Sheffield United. That's Arsenal, Crystal Palace and Newcastle. We'll have more on them. But Norwich, the pressure is really getting to them. I think Teemu Pukki, despite scoring at Southampton, 9 goals, he really needs to get into double figures, I think, as soon as possible, because that really is the only way that Norwich can get going again, if they can keep Todd Cantwell and Teemu Pukki scoring, because they are the real strong links in the team. And I know people say, Max Aarons and Ben Godfrey, they're young, but their defence is very, very leaky. They've got second joint worst goal difference in the division alongside Southampton, who slips back into the relegation zone after a 2-1 defeat at Newcastle. Newcastle have now won 4 of their last 6 matches. That is very, very good for Steve Bruce. And a lot of people did doubt Steve Bruce at the start of the season, saying, he's not a very good manager. He's a decent Premier League manager, but obviously he's not one of the best Premier League managers. But he's done pretty well for Newcastle, and 11th was around about higher than where I finished. I thought they would survive just, as would Sheffield United, but they've got the same amount of points as Sheffield United, and they've got 6 wins now, the same as Manchester United this season. So the only way, I think, is up for Newcastle, and I think that, they've won against Southampton, which was really, really good, despite, of course, Southampton. Danny Ings scored against Newcastle. Danny Ings has been on fire this season for Southampton, despite them in the bottom 3. I think he's almost into double figures this season. But they've got Burnley away next, Newcastle. That's a winnable game. That is a winnable game. They beat Sheffield United away from home, obviously not with that VAR controversy, but they can do it. I really do think they can. And Sheffield United have Aston Villa at home, obviously the battle of the 2 promoted sides. So I think those games are the ones to watch out. I think there could be goals in Turf Moor and at Bramall Lane, because of course both sides have been scoring pretty well recently. But Southampton, of course, they lost. They have the chance to bounce back. They play on Saturday at home to West Ham, and we're going to get on to West Ham now, because they lost 3-1 to Arsenal. Arsenal pretty much turned up for around about 35 minutes at the London Stadium, because they were largely poor. Martinelli, Pepe and Aubameyang getting the goals for Arsenal. That mean that Arsenal, of course, are on 22 points, the same as Sheffield United and Newcastle. But for West Ham, this is where the problems really mount. One victory in 11 games in all competitions for West Ham. And Pellegrini now is really, under pressure. I think Manuel, is he going to go? They've got Southampton away on Saturday, and let me just check if they're playing midweek. I don't think they're playing midweek. They've got Southampton away next week, and then have they got a home fixture coming up till Christmas? Let me just have a look. I believe they do, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, like West Ham, Pellegrini will be obviously under a lot of pressure, because after that Chelsea win, a lot of people did think, he's surely safe after that victory. But yeah, it's just not been a good start, a good sort of last couple of months for Pellegrini. I don't exactly know what their next fixture is, so if you guys can let me know, that'd be amazing. But yeah, I think that really it's not been a happy time for West Ham. Obviously, they're 1 point above the relegation zone. Southampton could climb above West Ham if they win. So yeah, I mean, obviously people, well, people at school have been saying, "Oh, West Ham are going to get relegated." No. I mean, West Ham are too big of a club to get relegated. They spent £45 million on Sebastian Haller. They're not going to get relegated, but they need a change because West Ham are started to slip down the table. But I mean, for the amount of people that have been criticising Manuel Pellegrini, it is obviously why they've only won once of their last 11 games. But of course, the contenders in the job are Rafa Benitez, whose odds are getting much less as the days go by. Eddie Howe is 2-1. David Moyes, former West Ham manager, of course, I don't think that'll be a very popular appointment in East London. Chris Hughton and Sean Dyche, alongside Chris Wilder, who I think Chris Wilder would be a perfect fit for West Ham, but obviously a lot of people are wanting to get Eddie Howe, the Bournemouth coach, as West Ham manager. So will he go to West Ham? I don't know exactly, but they have to do what's best for the club, even if that means sacking Pellegrini. But Liverpool are currently leading 2-0 against Red Bull Salzburg. They are probably going to go through in their Champions League group. So on to the last 16 they go. Obviously they're defending champions, so very good to see. They beat Bournemouth by 3-0. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain scoring his first Premier League goal in I think almost a year, which was very good, and they really looked very good. But for Bournemouth, their losing run still goes on. They've now lost, I believe, their last four straight defeats. So Eddie Howe may hope for the West Ham calls to ring, because maybe he's starting to feel a little bit of pressure, 4 defeats in a row at Bournemouth, but I think he'll still be safe in his job. But Liverpool back on top, 46 points. Tottenham as well, they're looking to climb up the table. Jose Mourinho won his 3rd game in the Premier League in 4 attempts, beating Burnley by 5-0. Harry Kane scoring a brilliant goal, and Heung-min Son scoring what I think will probably be a contender for goal of the season, where he ran, almost 85 metres of the pitch, which was absolutely brilliant. Watford and their new manager, Nigel Pearson, they got off to the most entertaining start with a 0-0 draw at Crystal Palace. So what a game that was. I bet the fans really wanted to kiss his feet after the game. Also, we saw Brighton take the lead at Wolves, but then Wolves came back through Diogo Jota. He had a brilliant season last season for Wolves. This could be the moment where his season goes forward, because Jota is one of Wolves' key men, along with Moutinho and Jimenez. And of course, Sheffield United beat Newcastle. But the Premier League table looking pretty interesting at the moment. I mean, Liverpool at the top with 46 points, only 2 points off of maximum. Then we have Leicester, Manchester City, Chelsea make up the top 4. Wolves are in 6th, but only 1 point in front of Tottenham and 2 points in front of Arsenal. The bottom 3 are Watford, who are 6 points from safety. Nigel Pearson has a hell of a job. We saw him do it at Leicester, though, in 2015. Can he pull off another great escape? Norwich, 4 points from safety. Southampton tied with Aston Villa, but of course Aston Villa have a better goal difference on them. But Southampton, if they win against West Ham, could potentially go up to 14th because of how tight it is in the mid-table. I mean, it's from 6th place, Wolves 24, Aston Villa 17th, 15, 9 points. And people will say, that's not really a lot. But if Aston Villa, obviously, as I said, if Aston Villa win, they'll be in the same scenario as Southampton, climbing up the league. And it's a very, very competitive mid-table. It's not like last season when we had the top 6, then it was battle for Europe, and then it was sort of like the mid-table, and then it was sort of like the relegation battle. We're getting most teams that are fighting for mid-table, most teams fighting for relegation, most teams fighting for Europe. It is mad how this season has gone so far for the Premier League. Right then, the Champions League, of course, as I said, Liverpool are leading 2-0 at Red Bull Salzburg. They haven't really got long left to play. Inter Milan are home to Barcelona, and if we look at their group, I believe Inter Milan are kind of struggling a little bit. They need a good result. Barcelona, I believe, are already through. Chelsea are home to Lille. What a time for there to be a home game, of course, off the back of that away defeat to Everton. They need this. If they win, Chelsea, they will go to the last 16 of the Champions League, and that will be a huge achievement for Frank Lampard, because I thought Ajax and Valencia would really turn it on. Of course, Valencia played out a really entertaining 2-2 draw at Spain with Chelsea. I thought Chelsea would finish third in this group, but they could potentially end up finishing in the top 2 spots, which is really very good. But obviously the Championship is alive and well this evening. Also, the FA Cup second round replay. There, the ties to look out for in the FA Cup: Hartlepool against Exeter and Crewe versus Eastleigh, 2 non-league sides looking to go to the third round. But Liverpool and Napoli looking like they're going to go through Group E. Tomorrow's Champions League ties are looking pretty good, I think. We have Bayern Munich at home to Spurs. This will be the first big test for Jose Mourinho, who looks to be resting a few key players at their visit to Germany. So hopefully they can play well as well. Can they win the match? Well, they've been in pretty good form, I think. I think the fact that they did lose against Manchester United, a big club, will hamper them a little bit, but I think the fact that they beat Burnley 5-0 means that Spurs should at least be looking to go for a draw. Also, big games as well. Juventus looking to ensure their qualification, as is Atletico Madrid. Manchester City, they lost, I believe, against Shakhtar Donetsk. They've had a pretty rough time, of course, in the league, Manchester City. But, of course, they got an away tie against Dinamo Zagreb of Croatia. And in the Europa League on Thursday, obviously, we have Wolves against Besiktas, Manchester United at home to AZ Alkmaar. And, of course, both Scottish sides, Celtic and Rangers. Celtic won the Betfred Scottish Cup final this year, and actually this weekend. And there could be rumours that Fraser Forster, the England international goalkeeper at Celtic, may get a call up to the friendlies against Denmark. Coming soon, I think, for England. I'm not too sure about that one, but we will see. Obviously, Arsenal, Freddie Ljungberg got his first win against West Ham. They're in Belgium at Standard Liège. So it's good ties for Scottish football and for Arsenal. They are looking up, as is Manchester United. But yeah, that is the European preview. I will be doing a podcast on Friday in reaction to the European games. But it is time to look at the EFL. And it is a brilliant weekend of EFL football. Leeds United continue their push for promotion. They beat Huddersfield 2-0 away at home. Cardiff, of course, doing well now under Neil Harris. 3-2 winners. Bristol City are doing well. They're looking to go for promotion. 2-1 away at Fulham. That was a big win for them. Middlesbrough and Jonathan Woodgate absolutely needed the win because he was under a little bit of pressure, as was, I believe... as was the Luton Town boss. They managed to get a win over Wigan. They're in a relegation battle, they are. And Birmingham City beating Reading at the last minute by 3-2. In League One, Ipswich and Coventry, who met in the Cup, meet again tonight. They played against each other again on Saturday. They probably must be feeling tired now. And they drew 1-1. Also, Peterborough United, best attack in the Football League, they were held to a 2-2 draw against Portsmouth, and Bristol Rovers compiling yet more misery on Southend and their boss Sol Campbell. In League 2, Macclesfield had their match postponed against Crewe. The situation is really bleak at Macclesfield, and liquidation of the club could be possible. That obviously another winding up order in the court, so hopefully pray for Macclesfield Town. Exeter continued their resurgence after that little bit of dip in form. They're looking to go back to the top of the table. Also, Morecambe looking to keep their survival hopes alive with a draw against Carlisle. Leyton Orient and Oldham, bottom half of the table, they played out a 1-1 draw. And Walsall looking like they're trying to climb up the table with a 1-0 win against Port Vale. But yeah, that is it, guys. Of course, Celtic won the Betfred Cup this weekend, beating Rangers by 1-0. But that is it, guys. Hopefully you have enjoyed this podcast. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Podcast coming on Friday, podcast coming next week as well, and obviously I have an announcement to make about this channel in the next few weeks. So yeah, I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.